You don't know how to relax without feeling like you're doing something wrong. Even when everything is finally quiet, your mind isn't. There's this subtle pressure in your chest, a voice that whispers, "You should be doing something. You're wasting time. Someone needs you." And the strange part is, no one actually asked you to do anything, but you still feel guilty for resting. If that sounds familiar, this might not be about laziness. It might be about the role you were given, long before you even understood what it meant. You were the eldest, the responsible one, the mature one, the one who had to understand things earlier than everyone else. Maybe your parents were busy. Maybe they were struggling. Maybe they trusted you too much, too soon. So you stepped in. You helped your younger siblings. You stayed quiet when you were hurting. You figured things out on your own because there was no other option. And slowly, without realizing it, you stopped being just a child. You became the third parent. At first, it didn't feel like a burden. It felt like pride. People praised you. "You're so mature. You're so responsible. We can always count on you." And that felt good. Because as a child, being needed feels like being loved. So you leaned into it. You carried more. You gave more. You expected less. And over time, your identity quietly shifted. You weren't just someone who helps. You became someone who must help. Pause for a second. Think about this. When was the last time you truly rested without feeling like you were neglecting something? Not distracted rest, not scrolling, not escaping, but actual, peaceful rest. If that question makes you uncomfortable, there's a reason. Here's what happens psychologically. When a child is placed in a role that requires emotional responsibility too early, their brain adapts. It learns that safety comes from being useful, from being reliable, from being in control. So your nervous system wires itself around this belief. If I stop, things might fall apart. Even if that's no longer true, even if your life today is stable, your mind is still living by old rules. Rules that were written when you were just trying to survive your environment. And this is where it gets deeper, because it's not just about responsibility, it's about guilt. You don't just do things, you feel like you have to. Otherwise, you feel selfish, you feel lazy, you feel like you're failing someone, even when no one is asking anything from you. That's the invisible weight of being the eldest child who became the third parent. You carry expectations, even in empty rooms. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine this. You finally have a free day. No deadlines, no responsibilities. You tell yourself, "Today, I'm going to relax." But within an hour, you start thinking, "I should clean something. I should be productive. I'm wasting time." And suddenly, rest doesn't feel like rest anymore. It feels like a mistake. So you get up and start doing something, not because you want to, but because being still feels wrong. This isn't discipline, it's conditioning. And there's a big difference. Here's what no one talks about. When you were younger, no one asked you if you were tired. No one noticed when you were overwhelmed, because you were the one who handled things. So you learned to ignore your own needs, not consciously, but gradually, silently. And now as an adult, you don't even recognize when you need rest. You only recognize when you've done enough. Ask yourself this. If you stopped doing everything for a week, who would you be? Not what would happen, but who would you be without the role? Because this is the quiet truth. You were never meant to carry that much. Not at that age, not in that way. But you did, and you adapted. And that adaptation became your personality, your identity, your worth. And now, you're stuck in a loop. You can't rest because your brain thinks rest equals danger. You can't slow down because slowing down feels like losing control. You can't let go because you've been holding everything together for so long. But here's the twist. The thing you're afraid will fall apart might not actually fall apart. And even if it does, it was never your responsibility to hold it all alone in the first place. This doesn't mean you stop being responsible. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start separating your worth from your usefulness. Because right now, those two are fused together. And that's why rest feels like guilt. Because when you're not useful, you feel like you're nothing. But that's not true. It was just the story you had to believe to survive your childhood. And the hardest part? You didn't choose this. You adapted to it. Which means you can also unlearn it. Slowly, gently, without forcing yourself. Start small. Notice the guilt without obeying it. Let yourself rest even if it feels uncomfortable. Not because you've earned it, but because you're allowed to exist without constantly proving your value. Because you're not just the responsible one. You're not just the one who holds everything together. You're a human being who was asked to grow up too fast. And maybe, for the first time, it's okay to put that role down, even just for a moment.